Hey everyone, welcome. Get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's Reddit stories. Imagine you're elbow deep inside an open ATM, tools everywhere, blocking the entire drive-through lane for security. And some guy in a monster truck decides you need to stop everything so he can pull up. What happens when he refuses to take no for an answer, and then drags the bank manager into it? Chad demanded I stop working and move so he could drive up to an ATM. I repair ATMs. I actually enjoy it. It pays well, and I don't have to deal with a whole lot of people. But this just happened, and I figured you guys would probably appreciate it. So I'm at this drive-up ATM lane that has two ATMs, one behind the other. I needed to replace some parts, so I parked in a way that blocked both lanes, so no one could drive up behind me or drive past me. That security protocol. I've got the front arm of the ATM open, parts and tools laid out, and I'm literally in the middle of taking apart a piece I've got on the ground. It is very obvious I'm working. This guy in a huge, jacked-up truck pulls up behind my van and just sits there. The truck is covered in political propaganda and has a "fuck your feelings" flag on it. This kind of thing, people pulling up behind me, happens a lot, but usually a normal person with some common sense will eventually see what's going on and move along. He did not. Instead, he honked. I ignored him, because I'm not allowed to walk away from the ATM. Eventually, he gets out of his truck and tells me I need to move so he can get to the ATM. I politely tell him I'm repairing this one, but he's welcome to use any of the other four on the site, including the one he was literally standing next to. He says he doesn't want to use that one and that he needs to drive his truck through, so I need to pack up and move. I tell him I will not, and that maybe he should read his own flag. He got pissed. He storms into the bank and comes back out with the branch manager. The second the manager sees that it's me working on the ATM, he tells the man that I do not need to move. The man comes toward me again, and I politely tell him that interfering with someone working on an ATM is a criminal offense, and that he needs to leave the premises. The manager tells him to leave as well. He calls us a couple of faggots, backs up, turns around, and drives away like a madman. But not before I get his license plate. Police report filed. I hope this didn't end well for him. Edit. Texted the friend. He's got a clean record, so they only filed it. Kind of anticlimactic, but I'm okay with no more drama from it too. Edit 2. I'm required to report incidents. This creates a paper trail in case he pops up again. Edit 3. After answering a ton of questions, I'm realizing this was more an issue with him not being able to get out of the parking lot easily than which ATM to use. I was blocking the only lane his tank would fit through, so to get out, he had to back up, dodging cars, and then exit through the entrance. And while my retort was funny to me, I escalated the situation. The top commenters are pretty fed up with this kind of behavior. One person says this doesn't surprise them at all anymore, that the world feels like it's turning to trash, with people losing basic common sense, manners, and any shred of decency. Another commenter hopes the guy at least gets hit with a serious fine. Their point is that people like this never stop to think about what's going on around them or why something might be happening, and they definitely don't consider the consequences of their selfish actions. Maybe a financial penalty would finally force him to use a brain cell or two next time. And someone else points out the hypocrisy. This guy absolutely had to use the drive-up ATM so badly that he demanded OP move. But then he was perfectly capable of walking inside the branch to fetch a manager. Their closing jab is that people like this not only exist, but they vote and they breathe. What do you think about this situation? Should OP have handled the confrontation differently, or was he right to stand his ground and follow protocol even if it escalated things? Let me know your verdict in the comments. Who's the real problem here? Imagine you've just settled into your seat for an 11-hour international flight. You're a little drowsy from Dramamine, and suddenly, a complete stranger storms up, screams in your face, and threatens to yank you out of your seat by your hair. What would you do if someone like that ended up sitting directly behind you for the entire flight? Entitled jerk on airplane threatened me to try to make me give up my seat. This happened back when I was a teenager, over 30 years ago, when I was in much better shape. I'm only 5'5", and I still am, but back then I worked out and did martial arts. I was toned, but not super buff, and you really couldn't see my muscles under the baggy clothes I was wearing. I was on an international flight in economy, while my parents were up in first class using reward points. I didn't care because my plan was to take Dramamine and sleep through as much of the flight as possible. I put my luggage in the overhead bin and settled into my aisle seat, trying to get as comfortable as I could on this Continental Airlines flight. Then this entitled jerk, a middle-aged man, walks up and basically orders me to move. I was already getting a little groggy from the Dramamine and just kind of stared at him. He told me I was in his seat and that I needed to move. I told him I was in the seat on my ticket and that he must have the wrong seat. He starts yelling at me, calling me a stupid bitch, and threatens to yank me up by my hair if I don't get out of his seat. I told him that if he laid a finger on me, I would beat the ever-loving shit out of him. He demanded to see my ticket. I told him I didn't have to show him shit. A flight attendant heard us raising our voices and came over to see what was going on. He's flailing his arms and yelling, "This stupid bitch is in my seat and won't move." The flight attendant asked to see my ticket and I showed it to her. She said I was in the correct seat. Then she asked to see his ticket and he showed it to her begrudgingly, still insisting she was wrong. She looked at his ticket and told him that his seat was actually the one directly behind me. He turned even redder than he already was and looked away. He couldn't bring himself to make eye contact with me and just mumbled something as he sat down in the seat behind mine. I laughed at him and went back to trying to take a nap. Lucky for him, I don't like to recline my seat, so I stayed upright the whole flight. It was an 11-hour flight, so he had plenty of time to calm down. I don't remember any interactions with him when the flight landed, though. Top commenters had a lot to say about this guy and how the situation was handled. One of the most upvoted reactions was that, after he made a direct threat of violence, they would have asked the flight attendant to move them to another seat if at all possible. Sitting for 11 hours with someone who just threatened to yank you up by your hair directly behind you would feel unsafe, especially with someone who clearly has anger issues. Another person pointed out how pathetic it was that he didn't even have the basic decency to apologize once he was proven wrong. He got caught out, turned red, sat down, and still couldn't manage a simple sorry. And someone else used this story to make a bigger point. When people say, "Look at all these crazy videos, the world is getting worse," they're missing that people like this have always existed. There have always been rude, unhinged, entitled people. Karens and their equivalents long before smartphones. Humans have always humaned. Now we just see it more. What do you think? If someone threatened you like that over a seat and then ended up sitting right behind you for an 11-hour flight, would you stay put like OP did or ask to be moved? And do you think the airline staff should have done more after that threat? Let me know your take in the comments, and if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. A 12-year-old opens an expensive birthday present from her godparent and immediately calls it the basic version. Then, a week later, she sends a text that takes the entitlement up a notch. Did the godparent handle it the right way? My godchild called her birthday gift the basic version. I've been my godchild's godparent since the day she was born, and I've always tried to show up for her. Birthdays, school events, little extras when I can manage it. This year, for her 12th birthday, I bought her a tablet she could use for school and everyday stuff. Brand new, sealed, not cheap. So when I handed her the gift and she opened the box, she looked at it for a second and asked, "Is this the one without the pen?" I said, "Yeah, but it still does everything you need for notes and classes." She just shrugged and went, "Oh, okay, I thought it would be the other one." No thank you. No excitement. Just that. Later in the afternoon, I overheard her telling a cousin, "Godparent got me the basic version. I might upgrade it myself later. That stung, but I let it go. Here's the twist. About a week later, she texted me, "Hey, can you buy me the pen? It should have come with the tablet anyway." I replied, "No, the tablet was the gift." She didn't answer, and she never brought it up again. Funny thing is, every time I see her now, she's using that same basic tablet nonstop. Top commenters had a lot to say about this one. One person joked that next year, this kid might be getting a truly basic gift, something like a simple gift card, if anything at all, instead of a pricey piece of tech. Another commenter focused on the manners side of things. They said this was a perfect opportunity for a teaching moment, that a 12-year-old should already know it's rude to react that way to a present, and that the proper response to any gift is to say, "Thank you," even if it's not exactly what you hoped for. They added that if it were their child, they'd be mortified and would absolutely sit them down for a serious talk about gratitude and politeness. Someone else pointed out that this kind of materialistic attitude doesn't come out of nowhere. In their view, that level of entitlement and focus on upgrading gifts is usually learned behavior, and they wondered where in the kid's environment she might be picking it up, from parents, friends, social media, or just the culture around her. What do you think about this situation? Was the godparent right to draw the line at the tablet and refuse to buy the pen? Or should they have used this as a bigger teaching moment about gratitude and expectations? Let me know your thoughts and how you'd handle a kid calling your gift the basic version down in the comments. Imagine walking into a government office to renew your passport, with no appointment, no ID, no old passport, no wallet, and no way to pay. What actually happens when someone tries that? And what was really going on with this guy? Guy comes to renew his passport with absolutely no ID or documentation of any kind. Just like the title says, I was at the local service center recently to hand in some paperwork and get a password for my online service account. I'm at the counter getting checked in, and this man, who looked like he was in his 50s, comes in behind me and goes to the other counter. While I'm talking to my clerk, I can hear his whole conversation with the clerk at the other desk. He starts with, "Hi, I'm here to renew my passport." The clerk goes, "Okay, do you have an appointment?" He says, "No, I just thought I would drop in." "Okay, do you have your service card with you?" "No, I didn't bring that with me." "Okay, can I see the old passport?" "Oh, I didn't bring that in with me either." "Okay, can I see your ID, please?" "I actually don't have my wallet with me." "So you have no ID and you can't pay the passport renewal fee?" "Oh, there's a fee?" The guy was actually pretty friendly and accepting about the whole thing. He didn't act overly entitled, wasn't rude or impolite, and he said he'd make an appointment and come back with everything they asked for. But the idea of a fully grown man walking into a government service center to renew his passport with absolutely no ID, no documentation, no money, not even his wallet or the expired passport, was just outrageous to me. And I felt like I had to share it here. ETA. For those saying this is more ignorant than entitled, I totally agree. I just didn't know where else to post this story. The top commenters had a few different takes on what might have been going on with this guy. One person said the whole situation actually felt kind of sad to them. Their thought was that maybe this man had always had a close family member or partner handling this kind of paperwork for him, and that person recently became unable to help, whether through separation, illness, or something else, leaving him a bit lost about how to manage it on his own. Another commenter agreed with OP's edit, saying this seemed less like entitlement and more like ignorance and a lack of basic common sense about how these processes work. They pointed out that both entitlement and cluelessness are unfortunately pretty common. And someone else took a more specific angle, saying, he sounds divorced. Their point was that often the men who complain the most about being nagged by their wives are the ones who are completely clueless when the wife finally leaves, and they suddenly have to handle all the life admin themselves. What do you think was really happening here? Was this just harmless cluelessness, something sadder going on behind the scenes, or something else entirely? And have you ever seen someone show up to an important appointment this unprepared? Let me know your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Imagine coming home after a 12-hour shift, finally snagging a decent parking spot, and then finding your car completely blocked in by a neighbor who's decided that spot is somehow hers. What would you do when being nice turns into someone trying to claim the whole space as their own? Neighbor thinks she owns the parking space. In our apartment complex, the parking lot is strictly first come, first serve. Nobody has an assigned spot, and there aren't any special spaces reserved for specific apartments. One day, I got a knock on my door from a neighbor. She asked me to move my car so she could park in front of her apartment. She said she needed to park there because she has 4 kids. I wanted to be nice, so I went ahead and moved my car for her. After that, I tried to avoid parking in that space. But one day, after a 12-hour shift, I came home exhausted and parked there because it was the closest spot to my apartment. A little while later, she knocked on my door again and asked me to move my car. I was so tired from my long shift that I asked my husband to move it instead. He refused. Later that evening, I walked out to my car to go to the store and saw that she had blocked my car in so I couldn't leave. At that point, I'd had enough. I didn't want to confront someone acting that unhinged, so I called the police. Other neighbors came out and started complaining that she had done the same thing to them too. When the police arrived, they told her that I can park wherever I want. After that, she never asked me to move my car again. A lot of people focused on the fact that the neighbor literally double parked and blocked OP's car in, and were surprised the main issue became the parking rule instead of immediately towing or ticketing the blocking car. Some commenters said they wouldn't have moved their car the first time at all. In their view, giving in once just encouraged the neighbor's sense of entitlement. Several also suggested that OP should inform the apartment manager or landlord about this behavior, especially since it seems to be a pattern affecting multiple tenants. Others pointed out that this story is a textbook example of why boundaries matter in shared spaces. OP tried to be kind. The neighbor treated that kindness as an opening to claim a spot as hers, and in the end, the official rules had to be enforced to shut that down. What do you think? Was OP too accommodating at first, or just being polite in a tough situation? And how would you handle a neighbor who keeps trying to claim a shared parking spot as their own? Let me know your thoughts and verdicts in the comments below. And if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Imagine you're quietly working in your favorite spot, doing exactly what the place is meant for, and some random stranger suddenly demands you stop and leave because of their kids. In a hookah cafe? What are you even supposed to say to that? Can you move for my kids? I live in a European capital that is, like most European capitals this time of year, completely overrun with Christmas market fever. I'd love to avoid this whole plague. I honestly don't get what people see in overpriced bad food, expensive little trinkets, and massive crowds. But unfortunately, my favorite hangout spot is right in the middle of the old town, squeezed between the 2 biggest Christmas markets. The place I like to go is a shisha or hookah cafe, and it's clearly marked as that on the sign next to the entrance. That detail matters later. I'd like to go right when they open, when it's still pretty quiet, just to smoke shisha, relax, and read, or get some work done. Around this time of year, it usually fills up quickly with people coming from the markets, often a bit hyped up on mulled wine and therefore a bit loud. But that's fine. I've got my headphones on anyway. Today, though, it was quieter than usual, which I really appreciated, because I had finally gathered the energy to tackle a task I'd been avoiding. I got completely absorbed in my work and barely noticed that there were a bunch of kids, maybe 5 to 8 years old, running around. I only briefly wondered what they were doing there, then dropped the thought when I saw they were just going in and out of the toilet. Then suddenly, there's a hand waving right in front of my face. I look up, and there's this middle-aged woman standing there, and her face and general vibe just scream, Karen, in big, bold letters. I take off my headphones and, politely, and in the language of my country, ask if I can help her. She snaps, English? in a tone that made it sound like "Motherfucker, do you speak it?" was about to follow. I answer, "Yes, can I help you?" And then this conversation happens. Karen, gesturing toward the shisha, "Would you mind not smoking in front of my kids?" Me, completely confused. "But this is a shisha cafe." Karen, raising her voice, "I don't care, move somewhere else. My kids can't be around all this smoke." Me, even more confused. "Like, where? I'm sitting all the way in the back already." Karen, "I don't care, just leave. You are endangering my kids." Me, now annoyed. "Listen, lady, this is a hookah cafe. People come here to smoke. You should not be bringing your kids here. Now leave me alone." Karen, "So you're not going to move?" Me, completely done with her. "No, now piss off." I put my headphones back in. She just stares at me in disbelief for a few seconds, then huffs, at least I assume she does, gathers her kids, who have been watching everything very closely from across the room, and leaves. The waitress, who knows me well, comes over to my table and goes, "What the hell was that?" I answer with, "Right?" We shake our heads, and I go back to my work. But I'm still totally baffled by the whole thing, so here I am, sharing the experience with all of you. Reddit had a lot to say about this one. The top comment focused on the business itself. They wondered why the employee didn't step in as soon as she saw a group of young kids in a hookah cafe. In their view, the place is obviously an adult-oriented establishment, especially at this time of year, and staff should probably be told not to let people with small children just wander in and hang around. Another commenter was just baffled by the mom's expectations. They called her a prat and questioned how someone could walk into a hookah cafe and then act shocked that people are smoking hookah. And a third commenter went straight for the insult, saying it sounds like this woman has fewer brain cells than she has kids, and calling her a proper bellend for demanding someone stop doing the very thing the cafe is meant for. What do you think about this situation? If you were sitting there peacefully in a hookah cafe and a parent demanded you move or leave because of their kids, how would you respond? Let me know your thoughts and your verdict in the comments below.